Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here this morning. My name is Dawn Dole. I'm the Executive Director for the Taos Institute, and the Taos Institute is the host and organizer of this event. Welcome to day 2 of this virtual conference, Education as Relating. And we've got over 300 people registered for this conference. So some of them will be joining us today. Some joined yesterday, some will join tomorrow. Some are able to participate in all 3 days. And of course, because it's virtual and people have busy lives, we will see different people in different days. So that's very exciting. And we also have people coming from over 30 countries. And why are people coming? In our registration form, we asked people what they hope to get from this event. And people are coming for inspiration, to learn from others, for connecting. People are coming because they want ideas for designing innovative educational experiences. People are coming to be part of a community that values the relational dimensions of teaching and learning. People are coming to hear from educators and to engage with students and to also engage with change agents and how to be a change agent in their organizations and communities. People are coming to get exposed to new ideas, concepts, approaches to education. They're coming for dialogue and connection. They're coming to network with like-minded people and researchers and innovators, to learn together and to have rich dialogues about learning through exploring and all the experiences that people are coming with. And so if you were here yesterday, you know we had a wonderful day engaging, first with our opening plenary and then with 2 rounds of breakout sessions where we had lots of different topics and ideas and innovations presented. And then a lot of small group time where we were in conversation and reflection with each other and sharing of our own practices. So thank you so much for those who were participating yesterday. Some of the comments that we got yesterday towards the end of the day when we asked, what were some highlights from the day? And what do people want to take away from the day? Some of the things that people shared were a global lens on education, modeling, working together on all levels, staying with the power of the questions, focusing on educating for the future instead of the past, connecting as human beings first rather than the expert teacher. How might we create a world of ish? For example, safe-ish, relationship-ish, human-ish. Somebody else said, creating global networks of relational learning and relational teaching. The photo voice was an innovative idea that somebody picked up on. We have a thirst for learning through dialogue and collaboration, creating a sense of belonging and connectivity to allow others to add value and create commonalities and community. Storytelling as a learning opportunity, and dealing with fear of change as part of the process of how learning happens. So lots and lots of conversation and discussion yesterday, and we really valued our time together. I'd like to introduce Alex Arnold, our program director, who is helping with the organizing of the breakout rooms, the plenaries, just the back end. So Alex is a key player in all of this. I would also like to introduce Tricia Holland, who is our technical assistant today. And if you need some technical assistance, you can email Tricia at taosinstitute@gmail.com. And Alex, maybe you can put that in the chat for people. So we have our conference website, and I hope all of you have had a chance to get into that website and really explore. Everything is in one place in that conference website. So keep that URL handy and access it frequently throughout the day. One thing I want to draw your attention to very briefly is Alex is going to show a screen called Schedule at a Glance. If you want to pull that up quickly, Alex. This is our 3 days, just a high-level overview of the timing, so you're sure to come in and join at the various times that you're interested in. We're going to start each morning with a welcome and an opening plenary, and then small group time with reflections, and we'll have a little break. come back to the main room. This is the main room. And then we have our concurrent sessions after that with a little break between them. So be sure to access that schedule at a glance and check your own local time. We have people coming from all the time zones around the world, so it's really important. We have listed everything in our US Eastern Daylight Savings Time, just out of ease, but then please, we have a link on the conference website where you can easily look up your own local time to make sure that you are able to join when you want to join. So most of the sessions will be recorded. The plenary opening dialogues will be recorded and posted on the website. Yesterday's plenary, if you missed it, if you were not here yesterday morning, you can access that video recording on the website now. If you look at the plenary section of the website, it's posted and ready for you to view. And then we will also record this morning's plenary. The concurrent sessions, some of them have been recorded from yesterday and some of them have not. So you can also go to the concurrent session page for day 1, and you will see a little link at the top that says view video recording for the ones that we were able to capture. Some technology didn't lend itself to videotape them, and others have been videotaped, or we will get the videos later. But we wanted to have those available to people who wanted to see them if they weren't able to attend a particular session. And so today, as we talk to, when we move into our plenaries later, or our concurrent sessions later, we will ask the presenters in those rooms to also try to record them and send us the recording so we can post them on the website. Little Zoom etiquette that everybody already knows, I'm sure. Keep yourself on mute so we can keep down any background noise. You are able to manage your mute button, but it's really lovely if we can keep the background noise down. You can have your video camera on so we can see you, or if you choose to have it off, that's fine, because we are recording these sessions. We will eventually have as many videos available on our YouTube channel as possible. And also another Zoom thing, if you could rename yourself, especially those who are presenting, so we can find you in the participant list. Rename yourself with your first name and your last name or surname, just so we can find you easily. If you have something on your name on the Zoom participant list that we will not necessarily recognize, please change it so it looks the same as what is in the program, so we can find you for that. Also, we want to have this feeling of we are in the ballroom at a conference. So imagine we're at a face-to-face conference, and we are going to create opportunity for you to engage with each other and meet each other and have conversations. And right now, this main Zoom room is like the ballroom. And from the ballroom, we go out into the hallway when it's time for concurrent sessions and go to our breakout rooms. So when it's time for concurrent sessions, we're all going to come right back here to the main room first, and then you'll be able to choose your concurrent sessions. And we'll explore that a little bit more in a little bit later today. So I would like to just also remind us to expect the unexpected. We are dealing with technology and things do happen. A call I could be dropped. Alex will pick up and keep going if I get dropped. Yesterday during the plenary, we had Ken Gergen's video go out. So things will happen. We just have to be playful with it and just expect the unexpected in our technology. So let's get started with our plenary 1. We have, let me get to Sally. I'm going to bring Sally on. So Sally St. George is our host for this plenary time. And with this plenary, we are going to be delving into innovative practices in educational settings. And we're really excited about our guests and our participants for this panel discussion. Sally is a professor at the Faculty of Social Work at the University of Calgary. Sally's specialty is teaching marriage and family therapy and social work practices. She is also a therapist and supervisor with the Calgary Family Therapy Center. She's been associated with the Taos Institute since 1993, which is when we first started in 1993. She was first as a graduate student, intrigued with social constructionist ideas, and now she's been a board member since 2005. And she feels like her Taos colleagues have been her professional home throughout her academic career. So we are thrilled to have Sally hosting this conversation with our panelists, and I'm going to turn it over to Sally to introduce each of them.
Thanks, Dawn, and thanks for all the work that you've done to make sure that we can be afforded this great conference. I'd like to issue a warm welcome to all because we are so fortunate today to hear about 3 different innovative and inspiring stories of practice, of relational practice in educational systems. And I'm very happy to introduce you to each of the speakers and presenters today. First is Richard. Richard is head of school for an innovative alternative high school in Texas, in Houston, Texas. They've created a relational school where all teachers and students are trained in collaborative and dialogic practices for classrooms, learning, and management. Welcome, Richard, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Second is Ingebjorg, who is the head of a school for an innovative high school and leader of a countrywide initiative throughout Norway. I think Ingeborg is trying to still get here for now. And in this school, they're developing a whole series of schools actually across the country, which are designed with appreciative inquiry embedded into everything they do, from curriculum to development, to classroom management, to leadership, and to student relationships. I'm hoping that Ingeborg will make it to be with us across the miles. And then we'll hear from Cathy and Jen. They are part of a consulting team that co-designed a virtual inquiry summit with 900 people participating at Portland State University on the topic of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice for the campus. Out of this summit, over 25 projects were created by students, faculty, administrators, and community members. Welcome, Cathy and Jen. We're looking forward to hearing all of the exciting things that you've been up to. So what I'd like to do is to ask each of you, as we kind of do a round of listening to you, to please provide us with an overview. It's very early here still. Can you please provide us with an overview of the heart of your work and what it looks like in practice? So I think we'll start with Richard. Richard, we're looking forward to this. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. So my name is Richard Delaquadra. I am the founder of Xavier Academy, a small, fully accredited private school in Houston, Texas, currently serving a population of about 150 students, and a population that continues to grow almost on a daily basis. So when I think about the work that we do at school, it takes me back to 2007 when I had the opportunity to start a school. And given that opportunity, the thought was, well, why do what everyone else has been doing? What can we do differently, right? And so Xavier Academy is sort of based on challenging so many of the premises, educational premises that many of us have grown accustomed to. Initially, when I started the school, my background is in special education. And for some reason, I always noticed that in my educational history, whether as a teacher or an administrator, I was always able to impact students that others couldn't necessarily be as successful with. And so I took upon that experience to base the Xavier model on. And so for the first 7 years, we're talking about things like student-centered, customization, individualization, really giving the kids what they needed, and understanding that looked very, very different for every single student. And these ideas really, they took off, had a lot of success with kids. That attention that students received made us an extremely strong program. And when I say attention, I remember very early on when we were about 4 or 5 students big, getting a phone call saying, hey, my son doesn't want to go to school today. And being able to respond and say, okay, I'll get in the car, I'm on my way, and let me go have breakfast with him, and sort of figure things out and see how I can get him to school that day, right? So that really paying attention to the individual. In about 2014, or about 7 years later, I got introduced to an individual, Josie Paul, who today runs our wellness and counseling program here at the school. And she came as a volunteer. She's a therapist, and proposed the idea that I welcome, if she was willing to give some of her time to the school, would I be open to an opportunity of having a therapist at school? And within weeks, I became extremely curious about what she was doing with the kids, because I saw the results pretty immediate as to some of the things that she was doing with them. And at that point, she planted a seed with me about collaborative practices. And I became curious. And the more I learned about collaborative practices, and then call it social constructionist theory, call it relational theory, call it so many other words, the exciting piece was I realized, hold on a minute, I don't have to reinvent all these things that we're doing. There's actually theory behind what's going on here. You mean I'm not going to have to write a book explaining to folks about the things that we are doing? And I got introduced to this whole other community, whether at Houston Galveston Institute, Harlene Anderson, ICCP, ISI, and the whole works. And so today, when I tell you about Xavier, I can talk to you guys. I can reflect back to the process. We haven't changed who we are. So we were always relational from the beginning. But I can tell you that we are a lot more, we do it with a lot more intention. Okay? And so today I can talk to you about processes and things that we do that we all speak a particular language. So one of the things that comes to mind is what do we mean by relational approach? So connections, relationships.
Αν μπορείς να το δεις και να το δουν και οι άλλες.
Να το ψάξω. Δεν ξέρω πώς θα το ψάξω. Τι να γράψω.
Αν σου έχει έρθει ένας αγά,
Να γράψω.
So the relational approach. What does that mean? So it means helping all of us connect, right? And when I say all of us, I'm talking about students, teachers, parents, really forming this sense of community, or as many of us describe the Xavier family, and really putting that into practice. And to give you an idea of what I mean by this relational approach, one of the first experiences, one of my aha moments came when I was doing an open house and had about 20 parents present. And traditionally, for 7 or 8 years, I'd spend a whole hour telling them about the school and how great it is and all these wonderful things that we implement. But after meeting Harlene and really beginning to delve into collaborative practices, I also began to see how we started doing things differently. So at this open house, I just remember asking parents, hey, we're going to have a wonderful meeting today. You know, what are we hoping to accomplish? What would you like to know about the school? And really being curious about the people who were present. And I remember parents sharing. And then I asked another question. And my question was to my teachers who were present, if any of them could speak to some of the things that they had heard. And next thing I know, we're facilitating a conversation. Okay. But my aha moment came after that hour, because I didn't have to do anything for an hour. The teachers and the parents kept the conversation going. And that conversation kept going for an hour after the hour was up. And I had about 4 parents sign up immediately, right? And that made me even more curious, like there's something here special that we have to pay attention to. And as a result, I started really investing, training my staff. So a lot of my teachers go to ICCP. A lot of my teachers go to ISI. I have people that we spend a lot of time now talking about this relational piece. And one of the things that has come across in all the things that we do here is that we are surely learning to slow down, because the relational approach requires time. It really requires for us to pay attention to things that we don't always have time to pay attention to. And that in turns translate into different practices. So one of the things that we do to slow down is knock down this hierarchical approach to education. How do we do that? I'll give you another example. Faculty meetings. I used to walk in with my clipboard of about 10 agenda items that we had to get through, that information I needed to tell my teachers what needed to happen. Today, faculty meetings are very different. I walk in and there's no agenda. I actually ask my staff, what would you like to get accomplished in this hour? What are important things that we need to talk about, right? So it's a much more open and inviting process. And what I find is that in modeling so many of these things, my teachers implement these things in the classroom. Today, my teachers do not teach from a board. They sit with the students. We sit eye to eye with everybody, right? All I had to do was sit with them and then stand up and talk to them, just to help people understand the difference in power dynamics. And then how do we undo that within the classroom? How do we invite students to be with and to experience these things with us, right? And so our goal here is to, through our processes, to have what we call a transformational educational experience. And we do so by paying attention to details, by really being present and learning how to listen. Our perspective of education is that it is a process that is co-created, that the student and the teacher have just as much to offer in a classroom and to learn from each other. And then that gets translated into a very different practice than what many of us have grown up with. And so Xavier has become a very special place for so many of us, so much so that I think that we have so many things that we are blessed with. First of all, just how many people are present here this morning that are connected to Xavier in one way or the other. But also just constantly being surprised by our graduates returning. When we talk about creating lifelong relationships, we do that at the school. I am fortunate enough to say that by now, 14 years later, I probably have hired over a dozen of my graduates to come and work at the school, right? And that this work has transformed them in the sense that many of them have chosen to go into fields where they're working with people and where they're giving back to the community. So this is just 10 minutes. It's a very short time to really share so much. We can talk for hours about relational education. But I hope I have piqued your interest, and if I can share with you guys, the students will be presenting with me later on today. So I welcome to come learn more about the school. Thank you, guys.
Oh, Richard, thank you so much. I mean, like, you packed so much into that 10 minutes. And as a former secondary school teacher, I can honestly say that yours would have been the school of my choice if I could have back then. So thanks so much. And yeah, I think it would be great to attend the other sessions with your students and other teachers. So thank you so much. Okay, next we'll hear from Cathy and Jen from that big project.
Welcome and thank you, Taos, for this opportunity to share our story. So Dr. Cathy Royal, whom we affectionately call Nana, and I are going to co-present over the next 10 minutes with you. And we're going to do this in two parts very quickly. I'm going to share some context and overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Nana to really help us double click on the principles that really made this possible. So if someone could mute the other, I hear another sound in the background, that would be helpful. Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen. So here we go. The Equity Summit took place at Portland State University in a virtual realm. This was in October of last year, where we had over 900 participants, planned for 500 and had 900. It was one full day and it was 100% remote. And this was an opportunity for urgent action and reckoning, and for planting seeds of hope. Recall that during this time of October 2020, we were anticipating the presidential election. We were still in the midst of a global COVID lockdown, where we had a tremendous scarcity and social unrest. And so this was an invitation for a new conversation, and with urgency. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that this was a full team effort, where in addition to Nana and myself, there was the Supreme Leader, Dr. Ame Lambert, who was the Vice President of Portland State University's Global Diversity and Inclusion. She latched on to my husband and business partner, Tony Silbert, and together they grew this wonderful team, who also includes Omri Johnson, who was based in Switzerland during the time of this facilitation. We had 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And I share that because it's an important detail to recognize that there's never going to be the right amount of time or the right amount of resources to have critical conversations in education. And yet somehow it happened. So I'm planning that as not just, I'm not tooting that horn, it's not bragging rights. It's actually a hope I share with all of our audience members here, that you really lead with urgency. This quote really guided our work, the lovely Stacey Abrams, that good leaders are always at the ready, but not always at the front. And so we took our time in designing this summit to ensure that those leaders were at the front. And we harnessed the power of 5 Portland State University task forces, very diverse backgrounds, from faculty perspective, student perspective, to truly be, over that 6 weeks, the shepherds of our process. We, as the facilitators, were experts, if you will, on the methodology of appreciative inquiry, on facilitating on the grounds of the wholeness principle and social constructionism. And they were experts of their university community and of their lived experiences that deserved to be heard and told and seen. So that collaboration was real. I want to also acknowledge, before we turn it over to Nana, the role of technology in creating an inclusive space, from the landing pages to an online space to navigate, to virtual participant guides, which, by the way, you all can access in a website I'll share shortly. And then, of course, Zoom, which was, though limited to 500 participants, we streamed live on YouTube as well, such that there really were an unlimited number of participant numbers, and hence the ability for 900 people to participate in a one-day conversation remotely. Last but not least, I want to highlight the process that really guided the work here. And then I'll turn it over to Nana to really highlight the wholeness principle that really gave voice to this room. And that was really acknowledging and engaging smartly pre-summit of really what we wanted to study, and really honoring those lived experiences, taking the time during the summit to share stories of being seen across our identities, really harnessing what it means to be included and full use of self. And then the real bulk of our time together was on dreaming a new and inclusive PSU that was just, that was equitable, what those aspirations look like, and then digging our heels in caucus groups and together to ignite and co-create those infrastructures at a macro level and at a micro level, such that we can make our dreams inevitable. We harnessed those 5 task forces I showed you earlier to really ensure that everything we created together was something that had life long after this one day inquiry and dialogue. And of course, really leaving at the end of that one day with inspired action with intention that continues to this day. I'm going to stop my screen share and invite sweet Nana to share her lens of story here.
Jen, you do that so well. Thank you very much. You captured so much of what we did. I think the thing that allows us to really be so excited about what happened and excited about how we did this in 6 weeks was the wonderful collaborative and relational efforts that created a high-performing team. And we talk about high-performing teams, and one of the things that I say all the time is that high-performing teams care about each other. And that really is, for me, the core of what we're talking about today, and that is relational and education as relational. What we found, and what we also co-created, was that the PSU Summit became a relational experience for everyone. We were in the middle, as Jen said earlier, of so many different things. We were in the middle of an election. We were in the middle of recognizing the assassination of Mr. George Floyd. We were in the middle of understanding Occupy Portland in terms of the resistance movement that was there around police brutality and the work that was going on in the African-American community and in the larger Portland community. And PSU, Portland State University, was in the middle of all of that because they are a state-funded university, because they are a university that has a mission of serving all students and the wholeness of all students and every student, as well as understanding where they were on the unceded land of Indigenous people, of recognizing the fluidity and the changing dynamic of their student body, as well as their faculty. All of those things were coming together. And Dr. Lambert, who is just really such a wonderful, wonderful academic and a wonderful woman. So there's so much to say there around how she brought this together and how we all listened to each other. But for me, the sweet spot in terms of how we listen to each other was the fact that when you think about relational programs, and what Richard was talking about earlier, is that we listen to the students. And there were so many students that just showed up ready for change. And their voices were so powerful in what they said they wanted. And they also said, you know, if we don't get it, we call both. And so they talked to us, they listened to us, but we listened to them. And we also began to think about what is the most important thing that we want to have happen here? So what do you want to have happen next? And when it's at its best. And when we sat with each other and we talked about, okay, this is what we want. This is the relationship building that has to happen. If we can incorporate one of the phrases that I'm sure the Taos Institute will remember from the early 90s is every voice counts, every voice deserves to be heard, and every voice in the room. And so when we live that principle of appreciative inquiry and relational experiences, we also then had to think about what does that mean for me? So how do I listen? How do I listen actively or collaboratively to this whole beautiful spectrum of individuals and people who lived in different sections of the university? So how am I listening to the community that is represented by the infrastructure section, or the student access section, or the faculty access section? And so there were so many things that threaded through all the listening, and there were things that became very important. And one of the things that was very important is that we had to witness for each other. And in making that a statement, we used Dr. Louise Diamond's work around establishing trust and what does trust look like. And Dr. Diamond's work has the 4 levels of trust. And the first level is, I trust you will do me no harm. And that was our absolute level platform. And what we mean by absolute level platform is that we had to live in a relational space where we trusted each other, that our interests would be there, but there was not the outside and the external energy, the external threats that were coming to and being experienced by the BIPOC community. And BIPOC means Black and Indigenous people of color in Portland. So that was something that we allowed to be a thread through our work, that this is a safe space. This is a safe space to kick, scream, and shout about the homelessness, about financial burdens and stress, about misunderstandings around work and the need to work, about misunderstandings about who I am as a student, who I am as a faculty member, who we are as a university, and what we want to have happen next. And then we definitely lived on the platform that I trust you will understand my interest. And so that became that relational listening. That became the relational piece where anyone could be the leader in the conversation. And the conversation always threaded itself back to, what do we want to have happen next at Portland State University? And I think that the listening to the young people, and when I say young people, you know, I really can be I'm on the other end of the spectrum and loving it. And the idea of lifelong learning, and that circle of lifelong learning. I can learn from you and you can learn from me. And there is no place for the expert, but there's always an opportunity for expert information. But the setup of this is the so-and-so, and I must be the listener, was absent from our work, but always present in how we created the work. And then I trust that you care about me and my interests, even when I am not present, was the thing that I would say, and others will have things that they would add, but that was the thing that helped the sustainability of the information coming from the summit. Because as Jen talked about, we are still in the summit and in the work of the summit. As a matter of fact, shameless plug, Portland State University is about to launch a new initiative starting this week that came from the work of the summit and has continued. So it's stuck. And that for me was what was so important, because oftentimes the rate of recidivism in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space is very high. But at Portland State University, it kept going, and it has its own life. And I'm very proud to have been associated with it.
Wow, thank you so much. This is incredible, and your excitement is really quite infectious. So thank you for giving us that overview. And now we'll have Ingebjorg explain and give us an overview of her project. Welcome, Ingebjorg. Unmute, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. And I'm so sorry I was too late to the preparation in front of this meeting. And I'm so glad and happy that you have invited me. So thank you.
And we're happy to have you here.
And I'll tell the story from Youth Invest in Norway. And in the beginning, I have to say that when I listened to Cathy and Jan, there are so many similar things that happens when you use strength-based approach and the AI model. So we have, I'll tell you something about Youth Invest for a couple of minutes, and then I'll tell you about the learning journey we have had since 2005 and some of the results. So first of all, Youth Invest is a learning area for youth between 16 and 24 years. And the learning area, it's a kind of school, but it's a school for some of the young people who don't want to go into the ordinary school for a while, or they need something in between the ordinary school and then go back to the ordinary school. It's owned and founded by one of the counties in Norway. It's called Viken County, and we have 4 divisions in different municipalities in Norway. Every year, 230 to 250 young people come to our school, and we call them young learning colleagues. And we have changed from pupils and teachers to this new way of telling about each other, that we have young learning colleagues, that's the pupils, and then we have older learning colleagues, and it's me, like I'm a principal for that school, and it's the teachers and instructors and counselors. We have continuous enrollment throughout the year because some of the young people, they want to go out from the school, and then they can start at us in 2 days. We have support from the Crown Prince couple also, and then started in 2011. And it has been very important for us to have the connection and to cooperate with TAUS. So I must also say thank you, all of you that has done a lot of work before we started. So we have a lot of people to learn from, and we have had a lot of help from Kenneth Gergen, Sheila, Mary, all the others. So thank you very much. So it's a story how the profound changes in our organization can have ripple effects in an entire region and maybe have influence on the whole nation. But it started in Youth Invest in 2005. And we started to use appreciative inquiry. So David Cooperrider's 5D model, it's in the whole organization. It's about 42 teachers, or we call them older learning colleagues. And it started because we wanted to do development work to change the culture. So we started with a lot of main questions, but what we want most of all, I think that's the main thing for us, is how can we create the future we all want to be a part of? And then we have to start by ourselves. So we have made a lot of AI processes intern together with my learning colleagues. And in the beginning, it was just the older learning colleagues. But I think during those research, which we done, we found that the most important for us is to involve our young learning colleagues. So from 2007, we have involved them in the development of the organization, and we use the strength-based way approach in everything in the whole organization. And when we started to involve those young people, it's marvelous. And I can just say I agree to Cathy, because it builds trust, it gives us new energy, and I think also the young people are more open to think differently about a lot of things we take for granted. And we have used a lot of time to think generative and to make those generative question guides. And what happened was that we could see a big change in the culture, and we created the culture we wanted in the whole organization, and that gives the young people differently, totally another day every day. And we also saw that when we had them involved in the work, the dreams was much bigger. And also there were much more power in the way, all the steps we had to take to do changes. And after a while, a lot of people around us started to ask, how do you do it? What happens at your place? Why are the results with the young people so good? And that, and in 2011, the Crown Prince couple in Norway, we have a kingdom. You know that we have a kingdom, and there is the Crown Prince couple, and they have a foundation, and they asked if we wanted to be a part of the foundation. And then they also started to be together with us. So I think it must have been in 2014, in 2016, they started to travel with us, and they also took part in the 5D process, and they were also process leaders. So it's like we started in our own organization, and then we have been around in Norway and also abroad, and we have the young people with us. So we travel together, and when the young people tell us about their experiences, how we work with roadmaps for the young people, and we work with roadmaps. We use that in the design, when we come to the design. We have made a lot of big dreams during those years, and I think when we in 2010 we started to, one of the dreams was we wanted a national competence center, knowledge center, so we could bring this out to more people, because we got a lot of invitations to conferences, and we got study groups coming to us, and then we made this dream in 2010. We need a competence center, and we opened it in 2014. And then other wanted also asked us, can we cooperate? And we did that. So we have a cooperation with universities and with Ashoka, and most important of all, TAOS. So during these cooperations, we have made learning festivals, international learning festivals, and then we involve the young people in the preparation, and we use appreciative inquiry. We start often with the dream and connected to the social constructionist. What do we want should happen after the things we do, and then we make groups that can take those steps, so make this come true. And then they also, we all use our strengths in those learning festivals. So we have used, and we still use appreciative inquiry, and in meetings, and we use it with parents to search for successes when we cooperate in a good way. And we have and when we do this, the relational, the relation always become better and better and better. During this work, we saw it was important to also have a study program. And for the last years, we have done study program for teachers, social workers, and we have done it together with the university in Trondheim and with Otternes, who also is a part of TAOS. And I think we have had, and now I think we have 450 students. And today we had a last study group this autumn, and they are so satisfied. And then it increased questions. Can you come to our school? Can you do AI processes with us? So we have been to several schools, and we have our young learning colleagues with us, and we do it together with them. So the results is we have new Young Invest divisions in Norway, and there are some planning to make some new in other parts of Norway. And the biggest project now is to make this like a national project together with the government. And I hope we will release one during the autumn. So I hope I have given you a brief of what we are working with. And it's so fantastic, and we are so happy and still enthusiastic after 16 years with appreciative inquiry and social constructionism.
Oh, Ingeborg, thank you so much. I find your message and your illustration so hopeful, particularly for cultural change. So thank you very much. Now I'd like to turn actually to all of you and just ask you, we have 10 minutes left. If there's for a few minutes, what else you would just like to share in the remaining time? It's not very much, but each of you has done such a fantastic job of giving us so much in so little time. So for the next 10 minutes total among all of us, what else could you add, would like to add, or tell our listeners? Richard, let's start with you.
So I'm just in awe at all the work that and just how broad and encompassing it could all be. And just as I think about this relational approach in education, I guess I'm a lot more curious right now about how everyone else is doing their work. And I've been reading the chat and just seeing all, not only the questions, the comments, people sharing their work. So it's pretty awesome to be a member of a broader community. One of the cool things is I don't feel alone anymore. There's a worldwide community trying to do incredible work. So I'm just inspired by everyone's stories.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I feel like this has been a cuddle group for those of us in education for sure. Thank you. Ingeborg, anything you'd like to add?
I want to add that the results when we work with this group of young people who have different challenges, it's so nice to see that the results is very good. So we have a lot of young people now going back to the ordinary school and fulfilled it. And we also have had help from the conference couple to do some researches. So we know that when we work like this, and we need all those young people, they have a lot of potential and resources, and we can't miss them. And now we know that for every krona, Norwegian krona, that the government is putting into our organization, the society, they get 4 krona back. And I'm not so, it's not about the money, it's more about the people. But when we are going to say it's important to do this, and it's important that we can spread it into to the ordinary schools, then it's also important to have something to tell politicians, and they are often aware of money. It's like that, but they also are aware of all the young people who tells their story. And I think we couldn't have done it with all the theories we have got, all the strategies in the processes. And now it's so easy for us, I think, to share the strategies that can lift people up. And I have to say that I think the young people, they are so aware of, they want to have a better world. They want to get out and help other people. And they tell me that it's not, don't be afraid that you are getting old, because we are going to do this when you can't work anymore. And I think it's so nice to have all those young people with the enthusiasm.
Awesome. Thanks for going beyond the ordinary. Jen, what else?
I just inserted a quote in the chat from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how the time is always right to do what is right. And I share that because in this world, it's so easy to come up with 1,001 excuses for needing more time or needing more resources or needing the right everything in place. And yet what's needed more than anything is relational connection, a willingness to start the conversation. I give special shout out to the PSU president, Steve Harvey, who said that he had the chance when Stephen Percy had the chance to delay the PSU summit, to wait until after the election, to wait until there was a little bit more rest and quiet on campus. He denied it. He said flat out that this is something we have to do immediately and really honor and hear the voices of our university community. And the time was right. So I say that as a reminder and as perhaps a call to action, just as much for myself as I share it with all of you.
I hear it. Thank you. And Cathy, can you be our finale?
Well, there were a couple of questions in the chat box about interrupting and inspiring young students, particularly when they're at that age where everything they want to do is just belong. And so they want to look like everybody else, act like everybody else, sound like everybody else. And how do we do that when it's that time of sorting and shaping? And the one thing I would say about the interrupting and the engaging is I'm certified to teach everything from early childhood education to granting doctoral program, PhDs. And so in that, looking at that whole spectrum of education and the relationships that are important, the one thing that I know is that how I show up is how trust shows up. And so if you want someone to trust you, you really do have to show up trustworthy. I'm my best tool. And when I create a space where students can come, where really colleagues can come and talk through what it is that is the piece where I want to hurt, because I don't really know anything else. And so sometimes when I'm just speaking with students, I'll say to them in one of my most, I'll say to them, you know, okay, I get it. Today ain't going to be an AI day. Okay. Now, how do we reset to get back to an AI framework? Because sometimes you know, we don't know what happened before you got in my space, and I have to honor that background. So a lot of it really is the relational listening. And one of the things that I often say when I am actually thinking about how I interrupt something is that my first statement is, I am here to listen, but I'm also here to direct. And so there is a better path, and we're going to find that path. I'm going to be there with you. And I'll just close with something that my great grandmother Mamouche used to say to me all the time. And she would say, I'm with you when you're right, and I'm with you when you're wrong, to help you get right. And so I just hang.
This has been awesome. I am so inspired, and look at all the conversation that this has begun already. And so to be continued. Thank you so much. You've done an awesome job. And Dawn, we're so inspired. Over to you.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, panelists. You are just fantastic. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being here to be a part of this important conversation and our time together. I just can't express how grateful I am. And I do hope that we continue with the story sharing. All of these panelists were able to share their story in our short time together here. But each of you has your own story to share. Each of you has your own example of relational practices in education that you can share with those that you meet with. We are going to be moving into small group, mixed groups. And it's going to be an opportunity for you to reflect on what you've just heard. Alex is going to put some questions in the chat that we're going to invite you to explore in your small group conversations. What inspired you while listening to the panelists? What was it about their stories and examples that resonates with you or sparked your interest? What ideas or practices might you be able to draw upon to take into your own work with schools and education and youth? If we could design education in school to look like and be anything at all, what would you imagine? How might we begin to do this together? So those are big questions. There's a lot there. So when you're in your small group, you may pick one or two of those questions that you really want to delve into. If you have time to rotate through all the questions and just maybe spend, 5 or 10 minutes on each question, you're going to have about 25 minutes in your small group time. If you are put into a small group and you end up there either alone or with 2 other people, or with just 2 of you, come back to the main room right away. Just leave that breakout room and we'll assign you to another room so you can have 4 or 5 people in the conversation with you. So we just don't know who's going to actually join the breakout room when we do these mixed groups. So if for some reason you're the only one in there, or like I said, if there's only 2 of you, come back to the main room. We'll quickly reassign you to a new room. But there should be 4 to 5 people in your breakout room with you. So we're going to be opening those breakout rooms. The questions will be available to you in the chat when you go into your breakout room. So again, just what inspired you as you were listening to the panelists? What about their stories resonated with you and sparked your interest? What might you take with you into your own work about what you just heard? And if we could redesign education to look and be anything at all, what would you imagine? So Alex has got the rooms ready to go. You're going to get a message to join the breakout room. And let's get those going here.
Yep, I'm ready to open them.
All right,
So
let's
your
go. I'm going to
conversation.
put us on gallery view so we can see everyone. And enjoy your conversations.